Good evening, I am Mr. Ish. We're looking here at a video, not too difficult. It'll be more of an arithmetic or mathematical operation video than anything else. But anytime you see the word radical or fraction together in the same phrase or sentence, you know you're looking at questions of this sort. When you're seeing questions of this sort, you're probably thinking about rationalizing, and many of you may know how to do it. It's a technique that you utilize to simplify or deal with expressions where you have either a radical in the numerator or in the denominator. And when you have a situation such as this, you know you're dealing with some form of a conjugate. What exactly is a conjugate? These are expressions in terms of radicals. They can be non-radicals, but they're usually opposite in terms of each other with regards to a sign. If supposedly you have something which looks like this, or even a plus b, a minus root b, or a minus b. You see, the conjugate always involves an opposite sign. It's not just as straightforward as that. You could have something which looks like this, minus a minus b, and the conjugate of that would be minus a plus b. You see, this intermediate sign is what changes and it becomes opposite. You have to keep that in mind. The beauty of dealing with conjugates is when you're doing this multiplying with conjugates, you have some term over here like a and then plus b and a minus b. When you do the FOIL method, when you're dealing with conjugates and you do this operation, you lose any of the intermediate terms. All you end up doing is multiplying this with that and that with that. You don't have to do the intermediate terms because they'll always cancel out when you're dealing with conjugates. And that's the beauty of these type of questions where you're rationalizing this with its conjugate. You'll see intermediate terms will cancel out. So let's look at this question over here. How do you simplify or deal with this? You multiply everything in the numerator and the denominator with a conjugate of what you have over here. The conjugate of this will be 2 minus root 5, and you multiply exactly the numerator with that. You can multiply the numerator. 3 times 2 is a 6. 3 times minus root 5 is a minus 3 root 5. In the denominator, you're going to multiply conjugates. You won't have any intermediate terms. 2 times 2, 4. Root 5 times minus root 5, minus 5. And that right there is all you need to do. You wouldn't have any conjugate intermediate terms because it'll cancel out. 6 minus 3 root 5 over minus 1. And you can simplify this and say 3 root 5 minus 6. And this here is your final answer. Keep in mind, when you're doing rationalizing with conjugates, you're looking at your radical expression and you're making it its opposite, and you're multiplying the numerator and the denominator with that same expression. Our second and last question requires you to simplify this or operate on this type of expression. Here you're thinking about rationalizing, but you're rationalizing the numerator. It's the exact same concept. Here you're going to look at something which looks like root a minus root b, and you're going to multiply it with its conjugate, which is opposite in terms of this intermediate sign here. Opposite, the middle sign. And you'll do exactly the same as you do in the numerator, but with the denominator. Utilizing the same framework, you're going to multiply the numerator root 2 plus root 3 and the denominator with exactly the same root 2 and root 3. That right there is called rationalizing a numerator. And these type of techniques come very well into play in college algebra classes that you might take. Now it's easy. You have conjugates here only in the numerator. In the previous question we had conjugate in the denominator. When you're multiplying conjugates, you only have to do that with that and that with that. Don't look at intermediate terms. Everything will cancel out with regards to the intermediate terms. Root 2 times root 2 is a 2. Minus root 3 times root 3 is a minus 3. Over 4 times root 2 plus root 3. You're not going to be able to do much over here, but with the top you can do minus 1 over 4 root 2 plus 4 root 3, and this can be your final answer and it would be right. So keep in mind, when you're doing these radical fractions, you're thinking about rationalizing either a numerator or you're rationalizing a denominator, and always utilizing a conjugate. A plus b, a minus b, these are conjugates based on what you see over here, the intermediate sign or the middle sign. And with that, I bid you all farewell, a good night. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day.